So I'm sitting here with Jimmy Nguyen, or Nguyen as he's called normally, and he was the CEO of nChain, and nChain is the company behind Bitcoin Satoshi Vision (BTC), which is a split up of Bitcoin Cash. And the purpose of this interview is that Bitcoin SV, Bitcoin Satoshi Vision, to figure out if that is a blockchain platform for corporates. If you can basically do smart contracts with it, how it's going to develop, and where it's coming from. But the purpose is this a corporate blockchain use, and are the smart contracts good enough? So before we are there, we're going to through the background of this company and the background of Jimmy, but that's the purpose, which is going to be there in the end. Okay, Jimmy, thanks for the talk in Amsterdam.
Sure.
You had a talk at Bitcoin Wednesday.
Yes.
And that's where we met, and you had a couple of things which people should know about Bitcoin SV. But a lot of people know you because Craig Wright is the thinker behind Bitcoin SV.
Yes.
And he says for himself, and I have that in an interview, he's the original Satoshi Nakamoto. He wrote the paper, and he says, I have the original vision of what Bitcoin should be. And what if you look at the BTC at the moment, we have Bitcoin Cash, and we have BSV. Yes. What are the original thoughts which you guys are fighting for? What is that original thinking in the Bitcoin paper?
Sure. So I'll correct or clarify one thing you said in the opening, which is that Bitcoin SV is a fork off or split of Bitcoin Cash. I know it appears that way, as I'll explain. Mm-hmm. We believe we are the only project that has actually continued the original Bitcoin chain. So what does that mean? Yeah. It means that we are committed, and the only Bitcoin project committed to following and keeping stable the original Bitcoin protocol, meaning the set rules and elements that were in the original version 0.1 of the Bitcoin client software. We call that Satoshi version 0.1, as opposed to making constant changes to the code and the Bitcoin protocol that make it difficult for businesses, since we're talking about enterprise usage, to have a stable platform to build on.
So you want stable.
We want a stable protocol. 2, we want to massively scale the blockchain. That has been a source, as you know, of significant disagreement.
Unbelievable debate.
Unbelievable debate.
How big should the block be?
Right, in the Bitcoin community. Should the blockchains be big, or should we keep the block small? Right? There was that whole big block versus small block debate for a long time. And that cripples, in my view, BTC's ability to grow, and that's why you don't see enterprise applications on BTC. They want to keep the block small, move the transactions off of the chain to the Lightning Network or some layer 2 solution, and then they introduced changes that we think really undid what Bitcoin is, such as segregated
witness. So scalable is number 2, and you have blocks. They don't have small blocks, they don't have megabytes, they don't have gigabytes, they want to go to terabyte
size blocks,
which allows you a terabyte block every 10 minutes. How many transactions per minute would that be per second?
Sure,
17 million or something like that?
So it would be 7 billion transactions.
7 billion transactions per 10 minutes.
That's
so they want to scale unlimited.
Right,
so they want to scale unlimited.
Massive scale.
So that's the second thing. And then you want to make it smart, right? You say there's already, because there's already enough in the original thinking of Bitcoin, the Bitcoin paper, to do smart contracts and to be smart about it.
And to do tokens and
why is that? Because we needed Ethereum to go to tokens, we needed a smart contract. There was nothing developed on the whole BTC network.
Right, and that's because people essentially got misled for a lot of years. If you go back and look at the history, Vitalik Buterin and the people who wanted to create Ethereum actually originally wanted to do it on BTC, right? And the only reason that they ended up going to create Ethereum was because of the restrictions that were imposed by the Bitcoin Core development team, which took control of the BTC client software. They restricted a lot of elements that were originally in the Bitcoin protocol. For example, a number of operating codes that are in the Bitcoin scripting language were disabled by BTC. They didn't raise the blocks bigger, so you couldn't fit as much capacity in the blocks, and when you do smart contracts and tokens, you need more data, right? The data sizes are larger for the transactions. Another example is there is an opcode in the Bitcoin scripting language called op-return, in which you can embed metadata. So if I sent you a Bitcoin in a transaction, I can also add into that transaction some data. Bitcoin Core restricted the size of that field to be very small, to 40 bytes.
That's one thing. So one of the interesting thing about BSV is you can put lots of data in it,
Yes.
right? You can have transactions with text and images and even videos in there, right?
Yes.
A transaction, a transaction can be a block, can be a maximum of 128 megabytes at the moment.
Could be, yeah.
Yeah, and you're going
Actually,
to
not exactly, but
well, a little bit.
no, it's because there's a field in one of the opcodes in which you can embed data when I send you a
And that has a
Bitcoin,
maximum.
and we lifted the limit on that. Whereas on the other Bitcoin chains, BTC and Bitcoin Cash, it's smaller. Miners can set what size they'll accept. So right now it's set to 100 kilobytes, which is a lot larger than, let's say, 80 bytes on BTC. And so if you want to upload a really large file, that's like a high-res image, you can do it, but it divides the file into multiple individual
Yeah, and every
transactions.
10 minutes you have to,
No,
every
it
10
can
minutes
all be
in one
included
block.
in one block, but
multiple,
the file is cut into multiple files. It's kind of like how, you know,
chunks of 100 kilobyte
yes,
maximum.
exactly.
Okay.
But in
But
the
I mean,
future,
yeah.
we're going to lift that entirely, and all the miners will just decide what size they want to accept. It'll create an interesting competitive fee marketplace among miners.
Yeah. Okay. So that is a lot of the restrictions of Bitcoin are
Being
basically
lifted.
lifted up.
Yeah.
And then
That's
you
our
have
message.
you
Bitcoin,
have
no limits.
and then you have a smart contract. Is it a platform or is it on top of it
I think
with a
you're
lot
talking
of
about-
different data types?
I think you're talking about Tokenize, which is a token protocol as well as venture that won a £5 million tokenization solution contest run by our partners CoinGeek, which is Calvin Ayers' mining and venture and media arm, all focused on Bitcoin. He's a well-known, successful entrepreneur from the online gaming industry. And the winning team, which nChain helped select, is a team of a number of people based out of Australia and one in Singapore, I believe, called Tokenize, and they created a solution and protocol for doing tokens through a smart contract on the BSV blockchain. It's only
Okay, so
available
it's not part of the original protocol.
No,
it's
yeah.
something which is built on
right,
top.
and that's what that is what has to happen. The Bitcoin protocol itself doesn't inherently do smart contracts. It provides the tools from which you can build things to do that with it.
Okay.
And so one of the things that's interesting about them for businesses to know is we were impressed that their token protocol has planned into it the ability to make it very easy for any business to create a token for about 50 different asset types: stock, bonds, other forms of derivatives, consumer-facing things such as tickets for transportation, a concert ticket. So a number of different ways you can tokenize, and they also had in mind, because they wanted to be business-friendly, making it easy for a business to be able to comply with regulations in their applicable jurisdictions when they create a token, because not everyone in the Bitcoin world, is regulation friendly, and we want to create a regulation business friendly ecosystem. And I think any real business is only going to actually create a token if they have those tools to be able to manage and control their token and make sure it.
So you're regulated friendly. You basically are you're a lawyer, right?
Former lawyer, 21 years of law.
21 years
now
of law.
full-time
You
Bitcoin.
don't look like you're that 21 years of law.
Good Asian genetics.
Yes, it's true. Yeah, and then how can you be, as a platform, friendly to regulators? What do you do?
Sure. First of all, it's our ethos. We don't talk about making or advocate changes to our protocol that are designed to enable illegal use cases. A good example is Bitcoin Cash. One of the disputes that led to the split is they wanted to add an opcode, an operating code, into their protocol called opDSV. One of the primary use cases they were advocating for it was enabling
Anonymous?
Enabling trading platforms that essentially are illegal bucket shops, where you sort of wager on the rise or fall of some asset without actually buying the asset itself, right? They wanted to create sort of more permissionless marketplaces with it, and that's a problem. It's, all technology can be used for good or bad things, right? But you shouldn't be advocating for technical changes to your protocol by using an example which is clearly illegal. In addition, they wanted to go to
what are you going to do to be more friendly to
well, for example,
legislator?
we support things like the Tokenize protocol, which built into it the ability for a token issuer to comply with their local regulations by being able, let's say, to revoke tokens, whereas some of the other camps want completely permissionless token systems where once you issue the token, let's say you're a company, you can't revoke it or restrict its transfer. But think about it this way. What business would issue a token if they can't say, let's say, a rewards point? They can't say, I can revoke that because you did something that's against my terms and conditions. Or
Okay.
you're transferring it, let's say it's a share of a public company. I can't restrict the transfer, let's say, to someone in North Korea or in Iran if there are embargoes in my country against doing trade with those. That means, so that's a very different philosophy.
Yeah.
Secondly,
So
we're
it's a
also talking
philosophy.
to regulators.
Yeah.
We are advising on and looking at legislation of various countries. I submitted some comments to the country of Antigua's digital asset business legislation they're considering. So we are in, rather
What
than
about
running
Europe?
away
You're
from
in
it.
UK, so I guess you're talking to them there.
We, yeah, Craig Wright, our chief scientist, has had conversations with people in government agencies in the UK. I've provided comment through an intermediary to the legislation I think Poland's considering now. So we are, instead of running away from regulators, we're actually engaging with them to say, how do we bring more order to the wild, wild west of cryptocurrency to protect consumers as well as businesses?
Yeah. Okay, so that is the third thing, which is different. The scaling thing is one thing, the platform to be able to provide smart contracts and things, and thirdly, you want to be regulated. So it's not going to be
We don't
interesting.
want to be regulated. We want to create an ecosystem that is friendly and allows businesses to be compliant with laws.
Yeah, the
as opposed
solutions
to
which you create,
avoiding them.
Yeah, the solutions which can be created on the platform can be easily be regulated, and you have the tools.
Correct.
You provide the tools for that. So now there's a race. Okay, so you have the original BTC, you have Ethereum,
okay.
you have you have BCH, and you have BSV, and there's a bunch of other ones.
Yes.
What are you now going to do to make this platform, to popularize that? Because that's basically, I think, your role, right? To make all
Yes.
these connections. What is your role in the next 1 or 2 years?
So scaling. That is our big initiative right now, because for big businesses who are looking for a blockchain solution, and from talking to a lot of them are, Ethereum's having troubles with scaling. As well as security,
we
right?
already said that. Scaling is already there.
But that's
you
what
already
we're
do
focused
that.
on.
Yeah, but you're traveling around the world. You're investing in companies which do something with BSV. How are you going to make sure that people notice this platform? That people start building solutions, and especially my clients, which are the corporates, which are now all using Hyperledger or Ethereum Enterprise, or maybe a little bit Ethereum. Those are the platforms of choice of companies which now try to make examples. Why should they consider you, and how are you going to convince them?
Well, one, as I said, I'm going back to scaling, and that's really critical, because the other blockchain platforms are running into scaling problems. A big enterprise, let's say you're Amazon, you're Alibaba, you need to find a platform that is going to support the massive volume of transaction capacity you can do. So we're going to both scale the blockchain to enable, we're going to 2 gigabyte blocks in July, and then lifting the limits entirely next February. Second, we're going to bring projects directly onto the BSV blockchain through investment and technical partnerships with nChain that demonstrate some early business use cases. Because you need to show businesses, right? You can't just talk about it. So a good example is we have 2 good examples coming soon. Calvin Ayre announced an investment into Drive Markets, which is an institutional crypto and fiat exchange based out of Canada. One of the things they're going to do is they're going to build a payments network that is going to be run on the BSV blockchain and use BSV as the bridge currency. So for financial institutions and businesses that want to settle payments across borders, do it more quickly on the BSV blockchain for enterprise usage. Secondly, another example is crypto fights, and through a company called Chronoverse that Calvin recently invested in.
Crypto fights.
Yeah, so it is an online game, one of these battle games. I make an avatar, you make an avatar, we fight. And so they have a very interesting use of the BSV blockchain they've announced, which is because of its larger data capacity, they're going to record the game battles. Let's say you and I do a battle in a game to the BSV blockchain, create a battle explorer so that players can search for past games, watch them, and a link back player moves through a chain of digital signatures. And they're going to drive a lot of usage onto the chain by treating the BSV blockchain as the data layer.
Okay, so there will be an example of having high speed and lots of transactions.
And then we are, it's not announced yet, but we've just completed an investment deal Calvin Ayre is doing with a supply chain management solution that is going to be done on the BSV blockchain to manage the ERP and supply chain management process more efficiently on BSV. And so they're already getting the first clients and customers to demonstrate it.
So that's what
we're getting
doing
to the
now.
work.
Yeah, you're going to make sure that there's examples, that there's things, people using BSV
so
for
that
real
your
practical
audience,
purposes.
when they start looking at BSV, can see, oh, here's a company that has test piloted and successfully done this use case on the blockchain.
So 1 year from now, if we sit here again,
you should see a number of business uses of the BSV blockchain. I am carefully curating some of the opportunities we have to demonstrate use cases in different industry sectors, right? Because that's part of our message too, that this blockchain is the global data ledger for all businesses, all people, that you can run all kinds of applications no matter what industry sector you're in on this. So I think by next year, you should see several good, interesting use cases of BSV in different industries. You should see much bigger blocks on the BSV blockchain and much higher transaction volume.
Yeah, okay. So we'll see that. The intellectual person behind BSV is Craig Wright,
yes.
Mr. Satoshi. I could not, I mean, I'm including a presentation of him about the MetaNet or something like that.
MetaNet, yes.
Yeah. I mean, you should watch it, but I mean, you couldn't be different. I mean, you're a clear communicator, you're making it easy for everybody to understand, and he's basically throw things at you, and then you can understand it or not. You probably have to listen to it 5 times. How did the two of you got together and work together?
Yeah. It's
I can see that you're very complementary. You know,
we're very different. In fact, when people meet us and see our different personalities, you wonder how did those two end up paired together. So I was a digital technology and IP lawyer for 21 years in the US. Some of my clients started getting engaged with Bitcoin or virtual currency, and so I started to learn about it. One of my clients that was based in Canada is a company that wasn't initially part of the nChain group of companies. It was an electronic money transfer, an international money remittance business that started exploring virtual currency. And when Craig the plan was set to have him move from Australia to London and reset up a business around him. He was running business in Australia, doing Bitcoin research, blockchain research there, essentially similar to what nChain is doing now, but he needed more professional teams built around him to elevate his process. And so I was involved behind the scenes from a legal point of view, and then
you were the lawyer of nChain.
I was for parts of the company before I left law. It's a multifaceted group of companies.
And you basically liked working with him. You could get along with him.
It took a while, right? Because he's one of these people that when you first meet, and you've seen when you first have conversations with him, it can be a bit of a challenge to understand. But the more he's one of these people you understand more later, right? The more time you spend with him and talk with him, and then over time we, became, even better work collaborators, and now we spend a lot of time together and work together very hard, especially on the public aspects of what we do to build a BSV ecosystem.
Yeah. So it's really interesting that works together. And next year, if that combination works well, you promote it and you show it and you make sure that practical examples are done. And he basically designs.
He's the scientific visionary behind it.
If he writes, is he different than if he talks?
He's a much, I think, clearer writer than he is a speaker, although he's gotten a lot better as a public speaker. If you go back and watch some of his earlier speeches, you can see a progression in organization and thoughtfulness. I've been working on him a little bit. And to his credit, he's taken feedback really well. But if you read his writings, they are, and also, it's easier to have time to write and rewrite. So he is, but he's definitely someone I think what people should understand is he may not be as clear sometimes, and it's partly purposeful because he wants people to reach conclusions themselves rather than him spoon-feeding
in the presentation.
everything.
But if he writes a document, I think we should do this, then he can write it down very clearly.
More clear in writing.
So the amount of publicity you've had for BSV has gone up tremendously, right? You have, and you are everywhere at every conference. You're in Paris and you're all over the place.
Paris, Oxford here,
Amsterdam, and so that's very positive that you bring out the message. On the other hand, there's also a lot of controversy because Greg, if he's pissed off at somebody, he can really get pissed off in all kinds of ways. And so you've been delisted at
some exchanges,
at some very, very tiny, teeny little exchanges. I mean, like Kraken and Binance and all the other ones. How are your relation? Because you're a communicator, you of course reached out. You say, hey guys, don't use your personal, being pissed off about it to delist things. And there's a lot of coins which are less credible.
I didn't reach out to them to say that.
Not yet?
No.
Well, you
did
it in public. You done it in public. But what is your strategy to basically to keep the peace in the community, because you need them, right? I mean, it's also useful. You can build everything yourself, but it's also useful to be part of the crypto exchanges.
Sure, I totally recognize that Craig is provocative, and that certainly causes controversy in the crypto community and leads to some consequences, like some exchanges deciding to delist BSV. I do my best to focus on the work in technology and convince everyone in the ecosystem that it makes sense to work with BSV. The need to reach out to exchanges is an interesting question, because it sort of begs the question of what is the role of exchanges in our ecosystem. I think it's going to change in the future. I think we are a crypto community that has too long based the value of a coin or a blockchain project on what its exchange trading price is, or how many exchanges it's listed on, as the measure, right, of how valuable it is. And I think that needs to change. And so while it's not nice that some of the exchanges delisted BSV, a number of exchanges still have it on there, so we're on plenty of exchanges. A new one called Float SV emerged from Jack Liu out of Hong Kong expressly to be based on BSV and to move to a world where exchanges should be listing real-world assets, not a ton of
have a problem yet
tokens.
with liquidity.
We don't have a problem yet with liquidity. It is, like I said, it wasn't nice, but we're strong, resilient, and if anything, it actually galvanized a lot of our community to say, you know what, the exchange. Here's a perfectly good example. Is this the exchange world we want, where BSV, when we're actually building technology, is listed when a lot of coins that do very little still are, and Tether, which is now at the height of controversy with the New York Attorney General's case against Bitfinex, saying that Bitfinex covered up $850 million in losses with Tether, and it's now acknowledged by Tether's general counsel that they're only 74% backed by cash and some equity holdings. And they're still listed, and there's not a single person at any exchange or anywhere saying...
But it's a huge central coin for everybody. I mean, everybody's using it to go in and out very quickly.
Right, but
But I mean,
is it the size of a coin that should decide whether it should be listed, or whether the technical fundamentals?
Maybe you should have a little bit of private talks with them, and because you travel around,
But those exchanges delisted us not because of anything technical. No. They just don't like Craig.
No.
They don't like Craig.
No, they were pissed
off about his... And that's not going to change. And it's not going to change for those exchanges. And the smarter exchanges are saying we need to be fair and neutral. We may or may not like Craig, but their role is to provide public markets and protect their customers. Right? That's their first and foremost duty, rather than making decisions that negatively impact the holdings of investors all around the world that have nothing to do with Craig.
Okay. Well, next year we'll see if you are successful with your quest.
I think it'll be next year. We'll see some markers.
Well,
this is a multi-year quest, right? This is a long game.
Are you in there for the long haul? I mean,
if you actually look at the tweet that's pinned to the top of my Twitter feed, it's a cover of a book that says "Winning the Long Game."
Yeah. So one question: how does nChain get money? How are they funded?
It's all privately funded. We don't seek outside investment, and that's one of the things Craig says about it a lot. People call him a fraud or comment. He doesn't ask for money, right? He doesn't ask people for investment. We don't have a coin or token we sell that's our own, right? We didn't pre-mine BSV coins. He's just purely focused on the original Bitcoin vision, and that gives us a sense of, no matter what you think of Craig's provocative nature, a sense of purity in the we're doing this because we believe this is the right thing, not because we're asking or need money from people.
Okay. Thank you, Jimmy, for coming to Amsterdam. Hope to see you again.
All right. Bye, everyone.